Angels, it's Hailey, Reese, and I hope that you guys are having a fantastic morning, afternoon, night, whatever it is for you. But for today's video, we are going to be diving into a case that I personally haven't seen any other YouTuber talk about, and that could be because this case is incredibly controversial, and anytime this case is brought up, people have very strong opinions as to what they believe actually happened. Back in 2017, a model by the name of Chloe Ayling was actually kidnapped in Milan, Italy, and told she was going to be sold on the dark web. Now, like I said, this case is very controversial. There are plenty of opinions and theories and conspiracies and just judgment in general surrounding the case. So I thought that it would be a really interesting case for us to dive into today to talk about, and then for you guys to let me know what it is that you think of today's video. But before we get into today's video, I would just very quickly like to thank today's video sponsor, Function of Beauty. Function of Beauty is super cool in my opinion because they create a customized shampoo and conditioner for your hair type, and your hair goals specifically. It's actually super easy. All you have to do is fill out a 2-minute quiz outlining your hair type, your hair goals, personalized preferences, and then you get to choose your color and your fragrance. So it is completely customizable. And there's no parabens, sulfates, GMOs, or toxins, and it is vegan and cruelty-free. Now, for me personally, I definitely stay away from any shampoos with sulfates in them. It's my personal preference, and because I do wear hair extensions, it's something that I have to steer clear from to keep the integrity of the hair extensions. So I was really excited to hear that not only could I customize the shampoo and the conditioner, but it also didn't have any of the harmful things within it that I steer clear from for my hair type and my hair personally. So right here is my shampoo and my conditioner. They come with a pump, so you can choose whether or not you want to use it straight out of the bottle or if you want to utilize the pump. And if you guys look, it says on the bottle, Function of Hailey. So inside of the box, I have my little pamphlet here that says Function of Hailey, and my profile is that I have straight, fine, and dry hair, which is very true. And my goals that I chose were to hydrate, fix split ends, shine, soothe scalp, and lengthen. And then the fragrance that I chose was Milkshake, and I ended up choosing the color pink. So make sure that you guys go ahead and click the link down in my description where you will receive 20% off of your first order, and I promise you guys will not regret it. I absolutely love this stuff. So thank you so much to Function of Beauty for sponsoring today's video, and without further ado, let's get into this specific case. So back in 2017, a model by the name of Chloe Ayling was actually kidnapped in Milan, Italy, and told that she was going to be sold to the highest bidder on the dark web. Shortly after the end of her ordeal, when everything came to the surface, her captors said that this was all a sham for publicity, but Chloe denied, saying that this was the only defense that they would have to try to get out of the crime that they committed. Immediately, the public, after hearing this defense, started to debunk Chloe and feel as though her story was neither credible nor real. But in June of 2018, one of her captors would be sentenced to 16 years in prison for the crime, leading people to spark a great debate as to whether or not Chloe was telling the truth. So today we are going to be diving into all that is the case of Chloe Ayling and see what you guys think by the end of it all. So on July 11th, 2017, Chloe was in Milan, Italy for what she believed to be a photo shoot. At the time, Chloe was 20 years old and a mother of 1, and she was with an agency that had set her up for a photo shoot in Milan, Italy. Now it's important to note that he is now her ex-agent, and she would later blame him for having not done proper research into this photo shoot and into the company, because she claimed that there was a reason that she never accepted any photo shoots or modeling offers via Instagram or social media. And so she felt like he should have done a lot more research. But he He booked her for a photo shoot in Milan, Italy, and she was really excited about it. Now, her now ex-agent claimed that all of the details were given to him and everything seemed to check out. He was given a location on Google Maps, he was given a map of the studio and details like the surrounding streets, and he even said that Chloe had met the photographer before. So he believed wholeheartedly that every single thing had been checked out and that this was legitimate. And he claims that what would happen next couldn't have been foreseen by himself or Chloe. Now, when Chloe arrived to Milan, she'd been receiving and corresponding with a man named Andre, who she thought she was going to be meeting there. And she'd received email instructions from him detailing what to do when she arrived to the photo shoot location. He claimed that when she got there, he wouldn't really be able to come to the front door to let her in, so just to let herself in. But when Chloe arrived, she noticed that the door was actually locked. Now, this immediately seemed very odd to Chloe, but she decided just to call the contact number. And when she did, a man answered the phone and she asked where Andre was, and he said that Andre wasn't going to be there until 9, but that he was there, so she was more than welcome to come in, which doesn't sound very peculiar whatsoever. However, Chloe proceeded to tell him that the door was locked and that she wasn't able to get inside, and that was when he told her that she must have the wrong location. So Chloe started walking up the street, and that was when she saw a much smaller building with the company name outside of the door.
I had my suitcase in one hand and my purse and my phone in the other hand. I opened the door, put my luggage in, and I went round the corner, and then still silence, and I didn't see anyone, so I didn't really know where to go. So I was about to put my hand onto the door to open it to check if anyone's there, and then that's when I was attacked from behind.
It was at this point that Chloe said a man put one of his arms around her neck and the other around her mouth and nose, and she was struggling to breathe and to fight him off when another man in a black mask came around in front of her and had a syringe in his hand. Struggling to fight him off, he would eventually get hold of her arm and inject her with what she would later find out to be ketamine, and she would pass out instantaneously. Chloe would wake up inside of a duffel bag with tape over her mouth and her hands handcuffed. But she had a little bit of a breathing hole, and it was at this point, almost instantaneously, that she realized she was in the back of a car in a trunk, and the car was moving. She managed to remove the tape from her mouth and started screaming out to the driver, asking what was going on and where she was going, and just freaking out, trying to get any sort of answer. And a little bit after that, the car would pull over and come to a halt, and two masked men would come around the back of the car. They wouldn't say anything to her, but they would re-tape her mouth and secure her a little bit more, and then get back in the car and drive for what Chloe said was approximately 20 minutes until the car pulled off and stopped again. The second time that the car stopped, Chloe was re-handcuffed with her hands behind her back this time, and then the car took off again, and then around 20 minutes later the car stopped yet again, and one of the masked men climbed into the trunk with her. And Chloe described that he spoke very broken up English. He was trying to explain to her that they weren't going to hurt her, so calm down, but the English was pretty broken, even though he was trying to communicate with her. The kidnappers were actually two brothers named Lucas and Michael, and Lucas was the kidnapper who had been pretending to be Andre. Right away, the two brothers tried to lead Chloe to believe that this was much bigger than just two brothers kidnapping her. They acted as though there was a group of them, that there was a boss there, and there was a driver there, and there was all of these other individuals involved, which was a manipulation tactic to lead Chloe to believe that right from the beginning this was much larger than these two kidnappers. He told her that he was an assassin for an organization called Black Death, which was a violent group of Romanian traffickers, and that she was going to be auctioned off on the dark web as a sex slave for £265,000, or the highest bid that they could get for her. Her now ex-agent around this time actually admitted to Chloe's mother that when he found out that she hadn't returned and that something bad was going on, he began calling around to other agencies in Milan and found out that the agency that was supposed to host the photo shoot never truly existed. And this was one of those things that would later lead Chloe to believe that this was all his fault, because she felt like if all it took was a simple check after the fact, why couldn't he have done that simple check ahead of the time? But this is one of those things where when something bad happens, both parties are gonna feel as though the other did something wrong or that they did everything right. And it's just one of those things that you just can't predict, in my opinion. But needless to say, they found out that the entire photo shoot was a sham, that the photo shoot never existed, and they believed it was a ploy to get Chloe out there to sell her on the dark web. Her agent would receive a ransom email from the Black Death group demanding 300,000 euros for Chloe, or else they were going to sell her on the dark web, which, as I'm sure you could imagine, would be a very alarming email to receive. As soon as they could, they very quickly contacted the UK consulate in Milan for support. And Italian police visited the address that Chloe had went to for the photo shoot, which actually turned out to not even be a photo studio at all. And inside, they found Chloe's clothes and belongings, because immediately she realized when she had been put into the duffel bag that she was in a bodysuit and some socks, but her clothes that she'd went to the photo shoot in were no longer on her. So when she passed out, they changed her. And so there they found her clothing, but there was a real lack of evidence, and this stalled the investigation for a little bit because there was nothing that they could take from there other than the fact that it was never a photo studio and her clothes were there. Now, this horrifying image had been taken of Chloe with a Black Death card. It almost looks like a business type card on her, and was shown, number one, as proof of having her, but number two, as evidence of them going to sell her, which is so scary and so sad. And I can't even fathom being in that type of position, period. So I can only imagine what her family was feeling at that time. Now, during this time, Chloe was incredibly brainwashed. She was constantly led to believe that Black Death was above all government, and that any and every move she was making was being watched, and that if she tried to do even so much as move in the wrong direction, that her life was in jeopardy. And she feared immediately this organization because all she'd been told of was Black Death. She didn't know if Black Death existed. She didn't know any of that, but all she knew was that she was now kidnapped in Italy and being told that it was due to this higher organization. So she believed every single word they were telling her, and she was living in constant fear for this 6-day ordeal. Around this time, Chloe felt as though her only defense here was to make her captor fall in love with her. And it was actually said that one of the brothers, Lucas, would sleep next to her in a double bed, and that he began falling in love with her. So she kind of played into it and would push off his sexual advances, saying things like, when this is over, you know, we can do this, or whatever it was. And she claimed it was solely a defense tactic to keep him wanting to keep her alive. After learning that Chloe was a mother, which they weren't supposed to take, Lucas wanted to free her, even offering to pay $250,000 to free her. He decided to take her shopping in town to get her clothes and shoes so that he could walk her into the government building and therefore free her. Lucas was said to at this point still be acting as though there were people above him and that he was working for Black Death. And so he took her into town to get her clothing to return her to the government building. And this is where the controversial footage of Chloe shopping hand in hand with her captor was obtained. 6 days of being held captive, and finally Chloe was free. But immediately the media went into a complete frenzy. Now, Chloe was interviewed by the police for hours upon hours, but throughout all of these hours, she failed to mention that she'd went shopping with her captor. It wasn't until the police obtained the video surveillance footage of Chloe hand in hand shopping with her captor that she admitted to it. But she did say that the second they asked her about it, she had admitted to it.
But you never mentioned going shopping.
I know, that was because it was on the Sunday, that was at the end of, that was about like the 10th hour. And it was like a 13-hour interview, so I brushed it off. I just said, I don't know.
What was the question that you said I don't know to?
How did I get the tracksuit I was wearing and the shoes? He said he gave me the tracksuit and I'm not sure about the shoes. And then the prosecutors came in at the end and said they had spoken to the lady that owns the shoe shop, and she confirmed that I was with him, and then I admitted it straight away.
Why did you omit it?
Because I was just so tired. I knew that would amount to more questions, and I just literally couldn't even keep my eyes open. It was the end of the interview.
The defense of the brothers came forward and said that this whole entire thing was a publicity stunt and that it wasn't real and it was a sham and it was all for publicity. But Chloe denied that entirely and said that that was just their only defense against the crime that had been committed. But the damage had already been done. Not only had the captors came forward and said that it was a scam, but people didn't like how Chloe was acting upon her return to the UK. And in Chloe's defense, she said that she'd spent 3 weeks still in Italy talking to police and facing everything that had went on, and that she was still in fear of Black Death, and that she felt like they were watching her and that she was gonna get in trouble for being set free and for being in police custody, and that nobody saw the horror that she'd endured for those 3 weeks, and that when she returned home, she just really wanted to put it behind her because police had told her essentially that this was just 2 brothers, that there was no Black Death, that there was no mafia after her, that it was these 2 brothers who had committed the crime. But the public didn't like the way that Chloe had been acting. The public felt like maybe she had done it for publicity because the way that she was acting wasn't how they expected somebody to act after being kidnapped and put through that ordeal.
3 weeks on from her release, Chloe returned to the UK this weekend to her home here in Coulsdon in Surrey.
I've been through a terrifying experience. I feared for my life, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour. I am incredibly grateful to the Italian and the UK authorities for all they have done to secure my safe release. I have just arrived home after 4 weeks of being in Italy. I haven't had the time to gather my thoughts, so I'm not at liberty to say anything further until I have been debriefed by the UK police.
Out of everything that took place, a kidnap victim going shopping with their abductor.
But it wasn't shopping like everyone makes out it to be. It was literally just going into a hiking store to grab the first pair of shoes we saw in order for me to go back to the consulate on Monday and walk the 20-minute journey he planned for me to walk because he didn't want cameras to catch his face. That's all it was.
That's shopping.
Like, I'd never even crossed my mind that people wouldn't believe, and to have gone through something so bad and then be doubted was terrible. Unless you're in that situation, you can't judge, because when you're in that situation, all you have to do is think of how you're going to survive. And that was my instinct, is just make him, as in like a friend, to try and help me to get out.
Yeah.
So I had to lead him on. I had to do everything I could to get out because I knew that was my only way out.
The police in Milan heavily investigated to the best of their ability and confirmed that Chloe had a credible story. She was in fact injected because they found traces of ketamine in her hair, and they saw an injection hole in her arm, and her story really did add up to the evidence that they had present with them. So in June of 2018, Lucas was sentenced to 16 years for the crime. Unfortunately, to this day, there's still many people who do not believe that what Chloe said was the truth. There are people who believe that this was a publicity stunt gone wrong and that Lucas is serving time for something that was planned as a publicity stunt, while there are others who say, leave the poor girl alone, she endured enough. And what I think is really tragic about this case, it's hard to fathom that people expect a certain reaction out of you when you've experienced trauma. There are so many people who experience trauma different from one another. You know, I could be placed into a situation of great trauma, and it could be the exact same situation of great trauma that somebody else is placed in, and the way that we come out of the other side could be completely different. So it's really sad to think that this could have been a horrifying experience for Chloe, and that the whole world looked at her and laughed and said, you are so full of it. Now, Chloe believes that the reason that people are discrediting her story is because of how she looks. That was one of the biggest things that she said, was that it was because of how she looks and because of how she acts, but that she refuses to change the way that she dresses and looks and acts because of something that somebody did to her. Regardless, on the contrary, I don't believe that a man will be served 16 years in prison for a publicity stunt. But others say that it was just something gone really wrong, and this whole entire case is very controversial, like I said at the beginning of the video. There's two polar opposite ideas of what people think happened. There are people who believe every word that Chloe says and believe in the justice system and believe that justice was properly served. And then there are others who believe that this was a publicity stunt, that Chloe loves the attention, and that it wasn't what was said. Either way, it was said that the Black Death group was not responsible for this, that it was two brothers who did the crime, and that Chloe was telling the truth. What do you guys think of this? What do you think of the case? Do you think Chloe's telling the truth? Do you think that people should stop reading into people's body language after experiencing trauma? What do you guys think? Please, please, please let me know in the comments below. And that is it for today's video. Thank you so much to Function of Beauty for sponsoring today's video. Like I said, you guys, I have a link down in my description where you can receive 20% off of your first order, so definitely take advantage of that. And yeah, if you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would absolutely love it and appreciate it if you would click that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you guys.